Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. Boy, I tell you what, I get to continue having the adventure of my lifetime because Mark David Gerson is here. Gerson is here, excuse me. And
both of us are here.
Both of us, both in one manner or form. That's correct. And both of us are here. He is an amazing human being. This is, the third time he's been on the show, and we have such a good time every time he comes here because he is an author. He's an award-winning author of more than 20 books whose readers span the globe. Books that include spellbinding fiction and he's actually done a screenplay, and there is this scuttlebutt going around that it's going to be made into a movie and or a series of movies, and might be Netflix or something, because there's a lot of that out there right now. He's also does self-help guides and compelling memoirs and titles, and for writers that a lot of your work is now I got to ask you, did you ever think that you'd be on a radio show or a podcast and somebody would say, and his works are now considered classics?
But at least they're classics in my lifetime.
That's exactly right. Now, which would fall into that category that we can point people to?
I would say probably my first book for writers or on writing. It's called The Voice of the Muse, Answering the Call to Write. And I would say that's probably the one that is. I hate to be immodest, but that's probably the one that's considered a classic.
I don't think immodesty is something that you need to consider, quite frankly.
There you go. Then it is. It's the classic.
Well, you've done so much over the course. I believe, if memory serves me, that you really started writing when you were like 35.
Yeah, early to mid 30s when I started writing kind of seriously for me, as opposed to just doing magazine or newspaper stuff or corporate writing or government writing or things like that. Because I was doing that before that, but in terms of the kind of writing I do now, it would have been in my early to mid 30s. Early to mid 30s.
And how exciting is it to write government documents and stuff? That can't be a lot of fun.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yes.
But minus 50.
But you have to really focus on that, don't you? It's when you're writing government documents and stuff.
Well, I was actually, it wasn't quite as bad as that. It's not like I was writing policy documents. I was writing, the time I was actually working I was living in Toronto, and I was working for the Ontario Ministry of Education, and I was writing some promotional material, some policy document. It was a mix of stuff, but it was certainly not the most exciting thing I've ever written, fortunately. And although it paid really, really well, I was very happy to let it go.
Well, hopefully that you were able to replace that with something else, and writing over 20 books, and I believe you have 4 coming out this year.
Hang on. I have 2. I think I've got a little abacus is going on in my brain. I have 2 new editions of existing books coming out later this month or next month, and that's another book for writers. Was my second book for writers, called Birthing Your Book, Even If You Don't Know What It's About. I love that title. And The Star Quest, which is the second book in my Legend of Cantana fantasy series. So those are new editions, and the Birthing Your Book is not just a new edition; it's about a third bigger, more expanded than the original edition. And I have another memoir coming out probably by the end of the year at this point, and that one's called Hello, Yellow Brick Road. Supposed not goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but hello Yellow Brick Road. So I think it's
Yellow Brick Road. Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
That's the one. And the fourth one, now that you mentioned, is probably the third book in the fantasy series, which will be out by the end of the year, and that's called the Sun Quest. So Moon Quest, Star Quest, Sun Quest, and there are more after that.
How many more are going to be in the series?
Well, you tell me. I thought there was only going to be one. So what the hell do I know? Um, and then I thought there was only going to be three, and then I thought there was only going to be four, and now I'm working on the fifth, and I know there's a sixth beyond that.
Wow.
So I have a friend who insists. God, I hate to put this out in the world because then I may have to live up to it. I have a friend who insists that there will be 16. That's 16, not 60. There'll be 16 books in this series, which means I'm going to have to live, well, a very long time. Let's just put it that way.
So when you wrote the first book,
Mhm.
and you were just excited to have it out there, and
Mhm.
it was a fantasy, and it was great, and it was received really well, and then at what point was it that you said, or did somebody say to you, or was there a thought that just appeared that's like, you're not done yet with that?
Yeah. Well, I want to back up for a second to the first part of what you said, is because when I opened the book, that was my first book, and when I opened the FedEx envelope that had my advance copy of that book, and I was sitting in a parking lot in front of a UPS store in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I mean, I can still see it; it's so clear in my mind. I opened the envelope, saw the book, saw kind of my dream and my vision in physical form. I burst into tears. So it was a very emotional moment for me. But when the series happened, at some point while I was writing the Moon Quest, it's, I work very intuitively. I guess I just got this intuitive sensing that there would be two more stories in what would then be a trilogy, and they would be called the Star Quest and the Sun Quest. But I had no clue whatsoever what they would be about. And when the Sun Quest was finished, which to my mind, to my very limited mind, apparently tied everything up in a nice little package, I figured, well, that's the end of the series. And then one day, a few years later, then I was living in Portland, Oregon. I get around a lot. Um, um, I woke up one morning. I thought, I think there's more to the story. I thought, well, it can't be. I mean, everything, like I said, gets wrapped up. It's very neat and complete. So I thought at the end of the Sun Quest. So I thought, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a scene and just see what happens. So I sat down and I wrote a scene, and in the scene, I don't think I'm giving away very much here. A young boy, 7, 8, 9, is being told a bedtime story by his mother in this very remote, barren part of Quintana, which is the series is called The Legend of Quintana because Quintana is the land where this series takes place. And at this time in the sequence, the Moon Quest, Star Quest, and Sun Quest are history. They took place many generations ago, but the stories live on, and she's telling her young son the story of the Sun Quest, which is his favorite story. I won't say it's mine because that would be rude to the other two, but it's this little guy's favorite story. And she gets to the end of what she thinks is the story, and she says, "The end." And as I'm writing, I don't know what I'm going to write until I write it. So as I'm writing, the boy, Pira, his name is, says, "No, it isn't." And she says, "Well, that's all I know. There's no that's all that's been passed down. There's no more story to that." And he quotes a character in the Moon Quest, which of course again is history or legend as far as he's concerned, who tells the main character in that story, there's more to every story. And as I'm writing this or typing this into my keyboard, and having this kid tell his mother there's more to every story, because that's what Elisha says in the story of the Moon Quest, I thought, oh shit, there is more to every story. And that's how the fourth book was born.
And that's sensational because I can see that in my mind's eye that that would be, and then that 7-year-old boy, he grows up and he becomes, anyway, I won't go into it because you haven't written it yet, or you.
No, that has been written. That's finished, and that'll be out next year. It's the fifth book, which is the book that follows that one that I'm in the midst of right now. So the fourth book is called The Bard, like the storyteller Bard of Bryn Doon, Bryndoon, and the fifth book, the one I'm working on right now, is called The Sorcerer of Bryn Doon. No, sorry, it's called The Lost Horse of Bryn Doon. The sixth book is called The Sorcerer of Bryn Doon. So what I discovered, and what makes my friends feeling that there'll be 16 books, which again I find a little overwhelming to think about, is that I'm writing these books in groups of 3. It's like 3 mini trilogies within a larger series. So Moon Quest, Star Quest, Sun Quest forms one little mini trilogy. The 3 Bryn Doon stories forms another little mini series. So if in fact, I really have to stop talking about this number 16. If in fact there's 16 books in the series, then mathematically that's 5 groupings of 3 and 1 book to tie the whole thing up. Now, I'm not making any promises. I'm just saying. But you've heard it here first. I've never said this publicly on air about the 16 books. So this is an exclusive to you. But if that's true, it does kind of make a certain amount of sense. But and if it is true, I turned 69 this year, which is also hard for my brain to
Boy, no kidding.
compute. But if it is true, I'm going to have to live a whole lot longer to get the rest of this series written.
Well, but you're healthy and you're vibrant and you're doing a lot of different things. You're moving all over the place. You're living your best life, and so why not? And another 30 years? Absolutely.
Sure. What the hell? We'll just say I'm middle-aged now. How about that?
Well, the 60s are now the old 50s or something like that.
Let's say the 60s are now the old 40s. How about that?
Oh, that's even better. I'm 66. I would love that.
Okay, there you go. So you're only slightly behind me, but you're more than. I guess you can't catch up because I'm going to keep going. So,
what is it? Your story reminds me of, there was another story that became a movie, and in 1976, when the credits started rolling, and you got A New Hope, and it was episode 4. And it was like, wait, what?
What happened? What happened to 1, 2, and 3? Right?
That's right. And that was, of course, Star Wars. And then they went 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3, and then a billion others after that.
Right. Well, it's funny you should say that, because the producer who wants to film the series, I can't remember if I told you that story last time, but I actually met her at a book signing for the Moon Quest a long time ago. When I sent her The Bard of Bryn Doon, book number 4, she said, "Oh my God, this is the story I want to make first." So there's your Star Wars. There's your Star Wars analogy.
Well, you will just have to wait and see. But I really, really hope that it comes to fruition, because you've spent a good portion of your life really honing your art, and also giving back to a lot of people with self-help books and ways of they can be a writer. As a matter of fact, a little bit later on in the show, just to give everybody a little peek, I'm going to have you help me start to think about, if I were to put my biography down on paper and how I could get it to work and all of that, because you are also a coach and you help people that are trying to figure out the art of writing, how to make it work for them. Does that sound okay?
Sure. In fact, one of my books for writers is called From Memory to Memoir, Writing the Stories of Your Life. I have a workshop with that title as well. By the way, this is 2024, and it'll be March in a couple of weeks. Well, in March 2024, it'll be, 30 years since I put the first words of the Moon Quest on paper.
Wow.
Literally on paper, because I actually wrote the first 2 drafts longhand, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, well, 30 years ago, the typewriters, if you don't know what a typewriter is, go to Google it. It's kind of like a computer, only it's a self-contained device that anyway, just look it up.
Well, I
But
did have I actually had a laptop, but this is so long ago that wasn't a Windows laptop, it was a DOS laptop. There was no Windows yet.
well, and that's another thing you're gonna have to go Google that
Well,
and
DOS,
look that up.
DOS, look it up.
And that's when before the time of the Windows and all of that, and you had to really know some language, some computer
Right.
language, in order to make it all work.
But I wrote I may have written the first 2 drafts longhand, but I actually typed up every day's writing as I went because, well, 2 reasons. One is I didn't want to be overwhelmed by this stack of paper at the end, but also my handwriting, then as now, although now it's even worse, was so horrible. I was concerned that if I didn't type it up every day, after a few days or a few weeks, it would be indecipherable.
Now, in your world, when you started writing, how much would you write in a day? Would you write a chapter, or would you write till it felt good, or what?
It's well, the Moon Quest was an interesting situation because it was my first book. It was the first time I'd ever written something that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, literally, I did not know the story. I think we've talked about that before. I did not know the story. The story kind of snuck up on me, beat me over the head like in the old caveman cartoons, and dragged me into the cave and made me write. Um, so I only knew the story as I was going. So it was kind of stressful. I would write every morning, either just before or just after breakfast. And I would write for a couple of hours, whatever that turned out to be. So I'm less likely even now to work on a word count, a word count goal as I am just a time goal or until I feel complete.
Interesting. I have a quick story from about another writer that I just wanted to share with you, and see if this resonates with you at all. In because I know you're an intuitive man, and so you work from that in a lot of cases. There's a gal by the name of Sonia Pojek, and she
Mhm.
is a orthodontist by trade.
Mm.
And she woke up in the morning one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning,
And
and she couldn't go back to sleep. And she heard somebody say in the room, "It's time to write." She could have swore that there was somebody there. So she gets up, put on her robe, and walks around the house to see if there's somebody actually there. There's nobody there. So she calls her therapist or texts her therapist and says, "I think I
I'm
need
going crazy.
I think I need medication because I'm hearing voices now." And her therapist wrote back, "Well, did you start writing?" And so she um got a candle out and her tablet, and she had a bunch of journals that were empty, and so she started writing. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, it stopped. So she read what she'd written, and she didn't remember writing what she'd written, but it was beginning to make sense to her. And then she went and showered and went about her day and went and helped people fix their teeth and stuff. And then the next morning, she woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning again, and she got this message. This time it was internal in her head. It's time to write. And so for 18 months, every day, she got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and wrote till 5. And she came up with I believe it's 3 books that are just coming out now. And is that normal? I mean, I mean,
When it comes to the life of creative people, whatever their medium, nothing is normal, and nor are they. So it's it's kind of a pointless question. But yes, I mean, I mean, it's not unusual to wake up in the middle of the night. I mean, 3 or 4 in the morning and have an idea, whether you're writing a book or not. It's often a time where we're more available in a sense. Our defenses are down. We're still half asleep, so our critical faculties are down, and we're more receptive. So I don't encourage people to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write, but I do say keep. Well, in the old days, I would say keep a pad and pen by your bed. Now I'll just say, if you wake up with an idea or with a piece of whatever you're working on, just type it into your phone or speak it into your phone so you don't lose it, because like our dreams, you wake up at 4 in the morning. Wow, what a great idea. Go back to sleep, and 2 hours later, it's gone.
Exactly. And just so everybody knows, can I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely.
For a fellow writer, Sonia Palick is her name, and the series, and it's actually 4 books, and they all were written at the same time. That she just had to break them up into 4 because she had like 10,000 pages or something. Leave the Little Light On, and there's book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and those came out in the fall of 23. So I have to have her back on the show because I just think it's a great story. But I think you're right. Artists and musicians and poets and authors, there's something about you guys that is really unique in that you are plugged in where a lot of us aren't plugged in.
Well,
go ahead.
Being plugged in is a choice. Everyone has the potential to be plugged in, and a lot of what I write in my books for writers, and in my self-help books, really is about more than writing. It's about plugging in. It's about tuning in. It's about listening to those inner promptings, those inner sensings, because that's where our best stories come from, and frankly, that's where our best lives come from.
And by the way, we are talking with Mark David Gerson. If you go to his website, Mark David Gerson, that's GERSON.com, you can learn all about him, his 20 books. And if you have a mind, please buy a book from him. And I believe you can go to your website and they can buy it directly from you. Right. And you make a little bit of money, a little bit more money that way.
You can even, if you order it from my website, you can even get it signed by me.
Oh, no, that's going to be a big deal. That, yeah, so. I tell you, that's a big deal because you've got some classics out there and stuff. So anyway, Mark David, I need to take a really quick break. And sure. When we come back, though, we're going to talk more about you and your work. And then in the second half of the show, you're going to help me write my biography or some silly thing like that. So stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back, everybody, to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And this is on the Brushwood Media Network. And, I just love some of the PSAs that they have out there because, to be a father is not the same thing as to be a dad. And
no, that was great. That was great. I loved that.
Yeah. So, and they do a really nice job there. And you're going to be on there again. This will be your 3rd episode on the Brushwood Media Network. And it's fun.
I have a punch card, so every 10 ones I get one for free. Is that
exactly that? And Buck will get you a cup of coffee.
Not anymore.
That's I remember, just as an aside, I remember I was a waiter at Denny's in 1979, and the Starbucks was brand new, and I was sitting there, and at that time, a cup of coffee at Denny's cost 75 cents. And we were sitting there, and there were a couple of guys at the bar right there, and we were talking. And it's like, who's gonna pay $1.50 for a cup of coffee? Are you kidding me? This Starbucks place doesn't have a chance. Oh gosh,
right.
I could have bought stock then, and I would be maybe doing something bigger now.
Maybe you would be the Brushwood Media Network.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, again, we're talking with Mark David Gerson, and he's an author. He's a coach. He can help you put the stuff together. He's also a screenwriter. It's just epic what you do, and I really enjoy the fact that you are willing to come back and talk to me. You're just an awesome man.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk to you. So I'm happy to do it.
Yes, and let's talk about you a little bit. Now you travel a lot. Is that just by design? Is that just something you enjoy doing, or do you have this restless spirit that you want to go and find other places and do other things?
Well, it's as simple as that and a whole lot more complicated all at the same time. So I mentioned before that I'm intuitive and I kind of function from deep inner places in my writing, but in my life as well. And so when I feel a call to do something or go someplace or be someplace, I do my best to follow that wherever it takes me. Sometimes it's lots of fun, and sometimes it pushes me way, 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 way out of my comfort zone. Um, so yeah, I have, excuse me, I have actually been on the road this time around now for a year. Um, I'm talking to you again from Sedona, Arizona, where I spoke to you from last time, but I have not been here the whole time. And I've been gone and come back, and actually I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Albuquerque for a few months, where I've lived before as well.
Now, is there anything particular about, I don't know, Albuquerque at this particular moment?
So Albuquerque, you know, how long? When was this? This was about 20 years ago. I left Sedona for the second time. I've lived in Sedona on three separate occasions over the past 25, 30 years. And it was at the end of a relationship, and I just felt like I needed to be gone. And I just kind of hit the road thinking, well, I'll just drive around for a couple of months and see where I end up. And I ended up driving around for 30 months. And doing workshops and coaching work as I traveled, and that's kind of how I supported myself. And then at one point, this story is not going to make any conventional sense, then not a whole lot of my life does. I was actually in Albuquerque. I'd been in and out of Albuquerque over that stretch of time, over those 30 months. I was in Albuquerque, and my car was broken into. First time ever. I was parked in the one spot in the parking lot where the cameras didn't cover. But who
knew?
But who knew? Exactly. Nothing of any value was taken. But it was certainly unsettling. Everything I owned was with me. And when the dust settled, I realized, and again, even today I can't make logical sense of this. I just knew that journey was over. It was time to stop. And I've lived in this country now for 26 years, and the three places that have drawn me consistently have been Arizona, New Mexico, and California. And so I said to myself, okay, well, I'm in Albuquerque now, but where do I go from here? I could stay in New Mexico, I could stay in Albuquerque, I could go up to Santa Fe, I could go back to Arizona, or I could go to California. And there was no logic to the first part of the story, and there's no logic. I just felt Albuquerque, and I just stayed. In fact, I've lived off and on in Albuquerque over the course of my time in the U.S. longer than any other place. Consciously, it wouldn't be a place I would necessarily choose to go. It's not like I said, I want to live in Albuquerque. Nothing wrong with Albuquerque. It's just, it wasn't like, wow. It's not like Sedona, or it's not like, I don't know, Malibu. It's fine, but it wasn't never a dream place. It just felt like the right place to be. So that's where I went. And I'm going back now because I'm actually going to be house sitting for a couple of months.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So is that how also that you were able to afford that, is that you would house sit and and do that, or spend a lot of time in a hotel? How did you do that?
It's combination. I've stayed with people. I've done hotels and motels. I've done house sitting gigs. I've stretched my resources beyond beyond the breaking point. But you know, we're going to talk about your memoir in a bit. My first memoir, because there are 3 of them, is called Acts of Surrender. And it's not like surrendering at gunpoint to the enemy. It's about surrendering to your highest imperative, your higher self, if you will, God, if that's your spiritual belief system. Your wisest self is one of the ways that I characterize it. And again, it's what comes from here. It's what comes from the heart, which is where my stories come from, the stories I write and the stories I live. And so I just listen and kind of surrender to that and do what I feel called to do, go where I feel called to go, and trust that somehow in the insanity of it all, it's going to work out.
And if you have the opportunity to record that last minute and then replay it every day for the rest of your life, you will have learned something profound. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. We're going to need to take a station break. But I just love that. Say yes to life and to trust. And it's amazing the things that will come to you. So you're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald on the Brushwood Media Network, and we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
A lifetime of savings can disappear overnight. Millions of dollars are stolen every day from unsuspecting older adults by family members, caregivers, and trusted professionals. If you suspect financial exploitation, call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or go online to the National Adult Protective Services Association to be connected with help in your area.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Yes, we're talking to a canine over there and his owner, Mark David Gerson. And how are you today? And who is your friend?
This is, of course, if you're listening, you can't see him, but his name is Kyri. It's Kyri, and he's named after a character in the Moon Quest.
And he travels everywhere with you.
He goes everywhere with me, and he got tired of sitting on the ground, so he's now sitting on my lap, licking my hand.
And so, but he travels well, and he doesn't mind being in the car. He probably loves being in the car.
He's fine in the car. He sleeps a lot. He has a bed on the passenger seat, so I can't carry passengers because there's no room for anyone but him.
Well, it works.
It works. It absolutely works. It's good to have the company.
Exactly. So, Mark David, because you've written books and classics on teaching people how to write and the muse, as it were. And so I have been told, I've been toying with this idea for a while, and that is that I really should put together either a historical bio or a just a biography of my life and stuff. And I've got a lot of stories, but I have no earthly idea how to begin. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks that are in that boat, that they would love to leave a legacy for the next generation and the generations after, that they can say, well, this is your great great grandpa, and this is the story of his life long after we are going where we're going and stuff. How would you recommend that somebody how would you recommend? We'll take me as an example, so you can actually ask me questions and stuff.
Well, I'm going to start by telling you a story about my memoir, which is it's not designed as a plug, although I'm happy to give it a plug. But it's designed to give you an example, basically. So I had taught memoir writing workshops for a long time, and one day after the end of one of my workshops, that little voice, the voice of my muse, the voice of my wisest self, whatever you want to call it, said, okay, It's kind of like your other writer friend at 4 a.m. It's time to write your memoir. And I said, who the hell is going to want to read my memoir? Which is funny because that's what people say to me all the time. Why should I write a memoir? Who's going to want to read it? And I heard myself say the exact same thing. And the answer was, it doesn't matter because you have to do this for you. Writing a memoir. So an autobiography is more encyclopedic. A memoir is more emotional. So it's, an autobiography starts with "I was born on" and keeps going until today. Whereas a memoir can take many forms. It can be stories. It can work around a theme. So what I did was I said, okay, well, I don't have a theme that I was aware of. I have lots of stories. I'm just going to start by telling a story. I'm just going to start writing the stories of my life, which is why my book on memoir writing, it says writing the stories of your life, because our lives are comprised of many, many, many stories. And what I discovered as I began writing these stories was that my life actually did have a theme. And it was a theme I had no conscious awareness of.
Oh,
and that's where acts of surrender comes from, because my life has been a life of surrender. And I couldn't see it until I began to see the pattern in all these various stories I was telling. So this is a long answer to your question. My guidance, my counsel for anybody who wants to write a memoir and doesn't have a particular, some people, maybe there's been you've had abuse and you want to write about that. If there's no particular theme you're starting with, I say, pick a story from your life and start writing it. Period. And then pick another story from your life and start writing it. And then pick a third story from your life and start writing it. And just keep doing that and see what you discover about you. So as I discovered this theme, I was able to then hone in. So certain stories no longer belonged in the book because they didn't speak to that theme. Or certain stories didn't need to be written because they didn't speak to that theme. But once I had the theme, then I knew what I was doing. So you have many stories in your life because we all do.
yes.
And many stories, I'm sure, that have, you've told me a few that have changed your life. So
Yes.
what I would say to you is, pick a life-changing moment in your life and start there. Because you don't have to write this in sequence. You'll know the sequence. Just pick the story that was so momentous for you, that was so life-altering for you, the story where the end of the story, you're someone else altogether, and begin to write that story, and then just keep going from there.
That's brilliant. Simply brilliant. Well, as we've been talking, I've already come up with tell me, what do you think about? What do you think?
You've already written the book. Seriously.
Yes. In my head, it's kind of like it goes here. There you are. See, the opening scene of the book is I'm home, which is what I call the other side, and we are putting together my contract. What I'm going to be doing here, what's my mission, why am I going there, and what am I due to accomplish in that whole lifetime. And then suddenly, of course, I'm here, and then pick out stories.
What
the hell am I doing here? Because you forget everything.
Yes, well,
And then over the course of time, there are people that came into I don't know if this has happened to you, but it's happened to me on at least 3 occasions or 4 occasions that were clear. And the people come into your life They're there for a little while. Some of them you love them. Some of them they encourage you to do something you hadn't thought of. Others put you in a situation that you can then say yes to life and to do something, and then they just, for whatever reason, they disappear. They go away. They're not destined to be in your life forever. They're only there to move you to, and it's like a contract that you signed with these people that put you in the position to be able to go to the next level of what you're trying to accomplish in your life. And you don't consciously, well, you said it, you don't consciously know what is happening. It's like the day I was at the pool with my friend who I'd met at work, and he said, let's go to the community college. I want to enroll in school. And so we go there and we're standing in line, and he turns around and says, nah, I don't think I want to do this after all. And so I was standing in line, so I decided to, and I ended up sitting talking to the drama professor, and I decided to sign up for that. And then I was cast in a bunch of plays. I met my wife. That's where my kids came from. That my whole life changed because of that. And he left because the interesting thing about why he left is we were going to go to another restaurant to work because we felt we'd make more money there. Well, I got an abscess. Now, we were in a hotel. We were working for a hotel, and so I had health benefits there. The other restaurant had no health benefits there. And so as my face ballooned up and I got this massive infection, and I ended up having to stay there for the benefits. And he left, and I haven't talked to him since.
So you only have two great stories. You've got your prologue, if you will, which is signing a contract with no lawyer present, always a big mistake.
Hold on, I got to write that down. That's really good.
And you've got the community college story, which was again a life-changing story, and those two will take you to the next story and the next story. So I have a story about a client who had written a memoir. She didn't come to me for memoir writing. She came to me actually for a novel, but she told me that she had a very particular conscious reason for writing this story, for writing this memoir. But as she wrote, the more and more she wrote, the more she realized that her story was something different altogether. And by the end of the memoir, by the end of the final draft of the memoir, it was nothing like what she thought she was writing. And that's when you know it really is coming from inside.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? And so basically you just start writing and you have a kind of a rough idea, and then it just kind of takes it where it will.
So I have a saying that I use a lot in my books for writers and in my workshops, which is, there's two versions of it. One is the story knows best, and one is the story is smarter than you are. So of course it knows best, right? So if you trust the story and get out of the way, which is again, that's life guidance too. It's not just writing guidance. If you trust the story of your life, whether you're writing it or living it, and get out of the way and let it reveal itself. I was going to say unfurl because it's like a flag, it just opens up, or blossom, then you will be amazed. And that's how I find myself on the road, and I'm on the road. That's how I write the stories that I write, the books that I write. Very few of these books I've known what I'm doing when I start. I just discover the story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I just discover the story as I go. And the result is always far more amazing and far more compelling and far more engaging and exciting and sometimes stressful than anything my conscious mind could conjure up.
Well, the interesting thing about that is your conscious mind would say, no, nobody's going to believe that.
And it has, and it does. And even if I listen to it the first time, which I have done, not so much recently, but in the past, I always end up giving in, another act of surrender, if you will, because having lived this way for more than 30 years, as stressful as the moment can sometimes be, I know that the story is smarter than I am. I know that the outcome is always something more amazing than anything I can imagine. So I always end up going with it. And it's always true.
I have one more story that feeds into that, and tell me if you think this is print. It amazes me. We were at Thanksgiving, and I was with my Christian fundamentalist family, and we were talking about what happens when we die, and you get to go and worship and sit on a thing. It's like there has to be more than that. What is this all about? Why are we really here? Which is in the opening, and what is this all about and stuff? And so we have dinner and clean up, and then my wife and I go to a friend's house, and we meet a guy who I'd never met before. His name is Mark, and he's dating her, and because her and her husband got divorced. And so we were sitting there, and I started having this conversation about why are we really here? And they looked at each other and they said, we're having the same conversation. So we started to, as a group of four, started to work on finding things like Wayne Dyer and Neil Donald Walsh and Gary Zukav and other writings and other people that we were trying to find out, and about meditation and all of these things. Well, about 6 months later, he came to me, Mark did, and he said, we need to do a television show. And we needed to talk about all these things that we're talking about. And I said, well, I'll look. We couldn't do a TV show, but we could do radio. And so he encouraged me, let's do a radio show. And eventually our name is going to be on the side of a bus because you're going to be famous. In those days, they would do that. And so we started the radio show, and he got tired of it over time, and he didn't feel like so he quit. And then he moved away, never saw him again. And that led me to do the radio for the next 20 years. And
there's another story right there.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the most bizarre thing because I knew I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what it was. And then I started doing the radio, and somebody said, you're not half bad at this. You should do this more.
Yeah.
So, but that's why I feel like you do, that I've been led to do these things. You've been led to be on this show because we resonate with each other, and when the things that you talk about are so real and so honest and so true. And so you could say thank you or something at that point.
Thank you.
So I
missed my cue card.
Well, and it's amazing to me. The first time that we met, I knew that you'd been excuse me. You had 20 books and you're an author and you've done all these things, but I had no idea how you live your life in a spectacular way of just saying yes to life and going from here to there and using your intuition and finding things that work out for you and trusting that it's all going to be okay.
I think that is the key. It's because in the moment things don't always look okay, and that's true for all of us in our lives. But I'm a big proponent of trying to find, you might say, the positive value, positive talk radio. I would say the redemptive value of my experiences. I can look back and say, oh God, I don't ever want to have to do that again, whatever that happened to be. But wow, look where it took me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my marriage broke up and I hit the road for what turned out to be 30 months. The marriage breakup was horrible. It was not a happy experience. It was not something that I initiated. But it was the best thing that could have happened to me for so many reasons. And we're still really good friends. But it was the best thing that could have happened. Probably wouldn't have these 20 books otherwise. So in the moment, we don't see what's possible. Because what's possible, I mean, one of my favorite images is the iceberg. So we see, this much of the iceberg. What is it? 10% of the iceberg? I don't remember what the actual figure is.
10 or 15.
So 85 to 95% of what is in our lives we cannot consciously see. So why rely only on the 10% when there's so much else that's available to us if we open to it, if we allow ourselves to open to it? That's where the miracles are. That's where the magic is. It's also where the mystery is, and the can't control it is, and the terror is, of course. But all those things come together to bring the gifts.
I get the biggest kick out of people that say, "You're a happy guy. You got Positive Talk Radio. Your life must be like, cupcakes and rainbows." And it's like, well, I have to tell you, there was a period of my life that I call my bad country music song period. which is my dad died, my dog died, my wife left and lost my house. I declared bankruptcy. I hit a bridge with a truck. I got sued for $50,000, all in like a 3-year period. And it's like, but you know what? All of it was good for me. It all needed to happen, and including all of my friends.
It's hard to see in the moment. That's all. But if we can see beyond the moment and say, okay, this is what it looks like right now. But what about the 90% that I can't see right now?
Exactly right.
And again, I've had some people say, wow, you're traveling all the time. You're on the road. What a fabulous life you have. I wish I could do that. And I say, be careful what you wish for, because you're also only seeing the 10%.
Exactly. By the way, we've been talking with Mark David Gerson. This hour has gone by way too fast for me.
My God, you're right.
But so I want to give you the opportunity. If you are somebody is worth working with you, if you want to be a writer, if you want some help, get a hold of David. How do they do it?
Go to my website. There's a coaching page right on the website. Go to markdavidgerson.com, click on the coach link on the top of the page. And there's information on my coaching there, and or just reach out to me through the contact page on my website and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me? And I got a restless dog here. Can you go down? He's saying, why are you talking about you when you could be talking about me?
Exactly.
And something else I've just added to my website, I have, I'm not doing any live workshops right now. It's a little more challenging when I'm on the road, but I have a whole bunch of recorded workshops that are available for download. And those are all, including one on memoir writing, that are now on my website as well.
I'll have to look that up, because you've given me a lot of insight and a lot of really encouragement to go into write my own thing, because I really think, including when I was 10 years old and my brother hung me by the neck, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, and that made you who you are today, right?
It taught me that sometimes your imagination can really cause harm, because this goes back to the late 60s, and the movie Hang 'em High was being previewed in the theaters, and we had a great big apricot tree in our backyard, and my brother had a ladder and next to a rope with a loop on it, and of course, me being 10, I was fantasizing what it would be like to be in Hang 'em High and to get to walk up the scaffolding and put your head in the noose and get ready for them to.
Don't try this at home, folks.
No, don't try this at home. And then my brother pulled the ladder away.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did think so at the time.
No,
but,
I'm sure not.
but
again, it's another story of your life that maybe feeds into whatever theme is going to show up for you.
Yeah, it really did, and everything. So we all have that. That is the cool thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands, is that all of our lives are special, And there are things within our lives that can be instructive to some, can be entertaining to others, and it can all be a really good experience for everybody. Do you find that to be true, don't you?
Sure. And one of the things that is most gratifying for me, in fact, so someone just posted about acts of surrender on Facebook, saying just how amazingly inspiring it was for them in their lives. And I think when we share from an authentic place in our own lives, not only is it a gift for ourselves. For me, it was the discovery of an important theme in my life I didn't know about, but it's also becomes a huge inspiration for others when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable on the page, when we share our stories in an honest, open, authentic way. We inspire others, we help others on their journeys, and I think that's just so amazing. So when you tell your story, the stories of your life, whatever form that ends up taking, it's going to have a huge impact for you in your life, because you're going to get all kinds of clarity and you're going to inspire yourself, but it's also going to help others. And that's amazing, because that's what we do. We tell stories, we share stories, we inspire each other.
I know when you were sitting, having just gotten your first novel, and you were sitting in front of the UPS station, and you were crying. I'm willing to bet that when you got the notice of how your book changed this man's life, that a little tear came to your eye. I'm willing to bet.
Yeah. Yes. No. I'm very moved by things like that, because we, especially writers, but visual artists as well. We work in a vacuum. We sit in a room by ourselves most of the time, and pour our guts or our hearts onto a screen or onto a page or onto a canvas. There's nobody else around. And when it comes to a book, I'm not sitting there watching you while you're reading my book and getting your reactions. I once the book is out there, that's it. I don't know how you're going to respond to it. In a gallery, I could be there. I could be eavesdropping on people looking at my photography. I'm also a photographer, but when it comes to a book, I don't get to see you experience my book. So when I get feedback like that, it's validating.
I have the same thing. I'm sitting here in a room by myself talking to you. And when you're in radio, that's generally how it happens. You got a board op and you're sitting there and you have no idea how it's impacting people. But I had a lady call me on the last day that I did Positive Talk way back when, and she said, "We're devastated that you're going off the air." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that. And it's so nice of you." And she said, "No, you don't understand. I'm an Alzheimer's caregiver, and she and I listen to your show on a daily basis because you can still reach her." And it was like, that really drove me to do the next 20 years and know that I was going to come back to do this.
Well, it's we, in all my books for writers, and actually in my self-help books as well, I talk about the power of letting yourself be vulnerable. We all put up masks, we all hide aspects of ourselves because we're scared. We're scared of being hurt. We're scared of being beaten up. We're scared of being hung from the apricot tree.
Exactly.
But when we can get past that fear and open our hearts to other people, it changes not only us and them, it changes the world. And that's the power of that.
And that's where we're going to have to leave it today. But Mark David is going to come back and see us again. So I'll be looking for that. Mark David Gerson, go to his website, markdavidgerson.com, and find out all about him. I got it. This hour just flew by. It's just you're incredible. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm always happy to come back and talk to you.
I've got you on tape. I've got you on digital. Is that what they call it now? I got you on digital saying that. So, if you wait right there, I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we got.